Good afternoon. We'll start in a minute. We're just waiting another minute to see whether more people are going to join. So welcome already for those who joined. Let's wait a minute. All right, 1 minute past 4. Welcome everybody. My name is Henk Singstra and I'm the chairman of the management expert group of Eurosite. And we are organizing a number of webinars each year focused on basically improving the competencies and capacities of site managers and site management organizations. Last year, our focus was very much on grazing and the impact of grazing on site management, and when introducing grazing. We also had 2 study tours on grazing, one in Poland and one in the Netherlands. And this year, our focus is much more on protected area management effectiveness. The specific subject of today is the certification of site management organizations and the impact or contribution this has to improve the effective management of protected areas. So why did we choose this topic? Well, in 2020, the Environmental Agency published a report about the effectiveness of site management, and it concluded that the management effectiveness is poorly evaluated, and that basically we do not much know about how effectively protected areas are managed. The EU Biodiversity Strategy 2030 outlines a commitment to effectively manage all protected areas by 2030. And last year, the European Commission issued a call for the implementation of a LIFE project titled or focused on setting up an EU system to assess management effectiveness of Natura 2000 sites and other protected areas, the EU PAME project. I don't know at the moment whether this project has been assigned, whether there is a contract, but anyway, there is a process to come to a EU-wide system for monitoring protected area management effectiveness. And one of the problems identified by the European Environment Agency is that there is a lack of knowledge and understanding whether investments in protected areas leads to the desired results. And that is a problematic situation, I would say, because of course, we are using in site management and protected area management a lot of public funding, and more also private funding. And we need to be able to show that these investments are effectively used and that they lead to the desired results. Well, in this webinar, we will especially look at 2 points identified by the EEA and which relate to the capacities and expertise of site management bodies. And the EIA concludes that there's inadequate investment in the capacity and expertise of management authorities. And secondly, that governance, sharing of responsibilities, and capacity to respond adaptively are inadequate. So the question is, will the certification of management bodies help to improve the capacities and to improve the options to show that investments in management are effective and also produce the desired outcomes. So we will show the way in the Netherlands the site management bodies are certified to get financial support from the government. And we have today Tjebbe de Boer here, and Tjebbe, who will explain the certification and the conditions of getting certified to us. So Tjebbe, the floor is yours. But first of all, one practical reminder: if there are questions, please put them in the question and answers button. So Tjebbe, the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Henk. I will first introduce myself. I'm Tjebbe de Boer. I've worked many years for the Ministry of Agriculture and Nature Management in the Netherlands. And after my retirement, I have worked for this Stichting Certificering SNL, Foundation for the Certification in the Netherlands. First 3 years as an auditor, and since 2 or 3 years now, I am a member of the board of this foundation. Later on, I will tell more about this foundation. Thank you very much for the invitation, and I'm happy to tell you something about the system in the Netherlands. I hope you will enjoy and will be able to learn something from it. Carolina has been so kind to present the next sheet. So thank you very much, Carolina. In the sheet, you can see something about the contents of this presentation. First, I will start with tell what is certification in the Netherlands about in a nutshell. And as Henk already said, we developed the certification as a part of the subsidy scheme from the Netherlands government for nature and landscape conservation. So I have to tell something about this scheme to come to a better understanding of the whole system. Then after that, I will go through the program of requirements, which is mainly the technical heart of the system. And then tell something about the process of certification and auditing, and in the end about our organization and about the results we have met, experiences, and some prospects for the future, for the coming years. And I hope this will be clear also for the projects Henk was talking about, for the effectiveness of the site management in the European countries. So next sheet, please. Yes, on the right, you see an example of certificate given by the Stichting Certificering SNL, the Foundation for Certification. And this foundation grants these certificates to individual site managers, nature management organizations, and collectives of owners of natural areas or agricultural land. And we do this as a foundation on behalf of the 12 provinces. In the Netherlands, we have had a decentralization of the support for nature and landscape conservation from the central government to the provinces about 15 years ago. So we don't have much to do with the central government, but the 12 provinces are leading in this. And a condition to get, as a site owner, to get subsidies for management of the nature and biodiversity, a condition is to have that you have a certificate. And this certificate is the document which officially states that you as a site manager or organization or collective meet certain quality standards. And I will explain which standards these are. A certificate is conditional to receive the SNL funding. Next sheet, please. Thank you. The objective of the system of certification is to ensure a high quality management of nature and landscape, biodiversity. It has been introduced from 2011 gradually as an alternative to physical field control. Before the actual system of subsidies for nature and biodiversity, we had in the Netherlands a slightly different system, and there was a control unit. I've been sometime a manager of this unit, a control unit with a lot of people who went into the field to consider whether the organizations and the private owners did their work in the right way. But this was very complicated, and when this new system organized by the provinces started in 2010-11, then we started to think about certification. And certification is led by, in fact, two principles. We state we have a lot of confidence in the site managers. Most of them are experts, especially, of course, nature conservation organizations. They are very, have a lot of expertise, but also many private owners are experts, and most of them are motivated to do the good things, to take care for their biodiversity. So I think it's a good reason to have confidence in the managers. And the second element is that from the side of the site managers, they have to be transparent. They have to keep a quantity manual, and they have to allow access to their accounts so that we, from the foundation of certification, can look into the kitchen, to say so, how they work and whether they do their work in the right way. It's important to emphasize that we certify as a foundation the subject, not the object. So we do not have a certificate for a site area or protected area. We only give certificates to landowners, individual landowners, organizations, collectives, or whatever. In this presentation, I speak mostly about managers, but it's more or less the same as the landowners of natural protected areas. So it's about the subject, not about the object. Next sheet, please. Yes, and that's why certification in the Netherlands is only a part of the total quality assurance system. In general, we distinguish three pillars. Certification is one, but monitoring of the biodiversity developments in the field is also an important pillar of the quality assurance. And the third pillar I've called it communication, but it means that there should be a good conversation between the site managers and the provincial government about the results of certification and monitoring, and to discuss questions like what's going good, what needs improvement, what can the province do in their policy to make improvements, what can the site manager do by himself to make improvements, and so on. Well, this whole system is in development. It doesn't work completely yet, but this is the philosophy behind the quality assurance system in the system of SNL. Next sheet, please. I'm sorry, but I've got a cold a couple of days ago, so I have to drink something sometimes. Yeah. The nature and landscape system, we call it system Natuur en Landschap in Dutch, SNL. This is a system where the 12 provinces, mostly in the same way, all of them, award management grants to conserve and manage the sites for the preservation of biodiversity. The basis is found in a funding regulation on nature and landscape, which is established by all of the 12 provinces. And we distinguish mostly two parts. One is for nature and landscape management of protected nature areas, and the second is about management in agricultural areas. Next sheet, please. For the first part, nature and landscape management, the grants for preservation of nature and biodiversity, landscape elements, and so on, is given by provinces and aimed at several types of nature landscape. For example, heather vegetations or woodlands of certain types of trees, or some kind of meadows or marshes, and so on. I will show an example in the next sheet. And these sites and types are established by the province in provincial nature management plans. And when a landowner manages this field according to the types in the provincial nature management plans, he can get a grant as an individual, or he can be part of a collective which can be granted. And in both cases, individual or collective certification is mandatory for them to get this support from the province. Next sheet, please. This is an example of a provincial nature management plan. In these plans, all protected sites, that means Natura 2000 sites, but more than that, even the whole, what we call in the Netherlands, whole ecological network in the Netherlands, is put on in maps like this. And for example, you see here in light purple, this area is a heather vegetation, rather dry, and the dark purple, this is a wet vegetation of heather, and the green is a certain type of woodland. And for all these types, there are specific grants which differ in a number of euros you can get for it, and there are some recommendations how to manage them and to preserve these types. Next sheet, please. For the agricultural areas, the system is slightly different. There's also a conservation plan of the province where some areas in the Netherlands are determined to be able to get grants for agri-environment management. And this is the Dutch agri-environment scheme, co-financed by the EU, like we have in all European countries. This subsidy can only be received by collectives, not anymore, but for individual farmers. And this collective, these agricultural collectives, work out the grants they get to divide it to all individual landowners which are in their region. Of course, this means specific requirements for the certification organization to consider whether it is going in the right way, of course. The collectives must be certified, and we have 40 of these collectives in the Netherlands. And because there are very strict European regulations about what farmers have to do and do not have to do for participating in the EU financed, co-financed agri-environment scheme, there are still some inspections by our inspection service in the Netherlands, which are not replaced by certification. This is mainly because of the conditions for a good agricultural practice and environmental practice and so on. Yes, next sheet, please. This is a picture of an area of which is agricultural, but has, of course, natural values, a combination, of course. And in the map, you can see the partition of the Netherlands in 40 units for agricultural collectives to participate in this regulation. Next sheet, please. Yes, so this is the system of the SNL, and as I told, when this was developed in the last 10 or 14 years, there was developed by the provinces this program of certification, and the main element is a program of requirements, Programma van Eisen in Dutch, which is developed and established by the 12 provinces. And this contains the requirements where site managers and management organizations and collectives have to meet. And this is not about the actual things in the field, but it's more about organization, the management process in their organization, administration, and this kind of things. I will show it later on. The requirements are not meant as a prescription for the organizations how to manage their sites. It's the requirements deal with the question what they should do. For example, they should have a good and up-to-date management plan. But the manager, the site manager itself, deals with the question, how do we write a good management plan? How do we use the expertise for this? And do we do it by ourselves, or do we ask another company to write this for us, and so on? So there is a lot of freedom for the site managers to deal with the requirements, and for us as the foundation of certification, we give this freedom, and we try to judge whether it's the way the manager deals with these things is sufficient or not. What we ask is that all site managers draw up all their issues in a quality manual, and this is their basis, in fact, for all their doings. And this and the whole system, what we ask from them, is actually based on the very well-known cycles, I think, from Plan, Do, Check, Act. Yes. Next sheet, please. Yeah. I will now go to the content of the program of requirements, but we distinguish 4 groups of site managers: large area managers, less than 200 hectare, small, bigger, larger than 200 hectare, the small area managers, collectives of nature organizations, nature managers, and collectives of agricultural collectives, the 40 I told before. The requirements for the large and the small area managers are more or less the same. So now I will tell about the requirements for these 2 groups together. Next sheet, please. So two sheets about this item because we have, let's say, 6 chapters of requirements. And I will go along. The first chapter is the site manager has to verify what we call the application title. He has to prove ownership or lease of his field, and all the administration about the site must be up to date and correct. This is very formal. The second is more about the expertise of the site manager. He has to set management objectives. Yes, and that means that he needs to have a document with a management strategy or vision or plan of however you call it. And in this document, the management types, nature types, need to correspond with the types on the map of the province I showed before. And when a management site organization thinks he knows better than the province, he can correct the map of the province. So he has to inform the province, and then the map will be changed. So all these things have to be written down in papers and in maps so that we can control whether it's done in the right way. The third chapter is how does the management in practice go on? So there needs to be a management plan, including concrete measures to take in the field. The site manager needs to write down all the measures he takes in a logbook, and he needs to save this book for, I think, 7 years. I'm not exactly, I don't know exactly, but I think 7 years. And he has to show how he implements knowledge about ecology in the field and so on in his management. And this might be knowledge in his own organization, for example, in large nature conservation organizations. They have a lot of knowledge in their own organization, but smaller organizations of private persons can hire, of course, knowledge on the market. It doesn't matter how, but the manager has to show something about knowledge. Yes, next, please. Fourth chapter is that there has to be a monitoring system. The manager has to follow the development of the nature in his sites. He can do it by himself, and he can request third party to deliver data. For example, provinces are doing a lot of monitoring by themselves. They have monitoring programs, so you can, as a site owner, you can ask this from the province and learn from it about your own field. And then we come to the fifth chapter, which is evaluation. The site manager needs to assess the monitoring data and to see what's going in the right way, what's going wrong, and so on. And he has to adjust management measures for improvement if necessary. The site manager is rather free to in the way how he wants to do this and the frequency, and it depends, of course, on the type of nature. For a woodland, it's not it is useless to do it every year, of course. But if you have a very dynamic system, it's right to do it within a small couple of years. The sixth chapter and last chapter is that the site manager has to review his own process. This means that in organizations there should be an internal audit about how things are going, and a kind of permanent learning and improving all these things in their organization. And there needs to be a report about what are the learning points and how will be the follow-up to carry on the improvements in the organization. As I told 2 sheets ago, the requirements for large and small area managers are more or less the same. It's more or less, they are not completely the same. And for example, the internal audit, that's something it's hard to ask from very little and not very professional site managers. So later on, I will show that we have a kind of support system for these small site managers. But first, and next sheet. First, I will go further with the requirements for the collectives, both the nature and agricultural collectives. As you see at point 7, 7 is plan, monitor, evaluate, and validate. This is the same cyclist we have seen in the former sheets for the individual or manager or the nature management organizations. The collective has to do the same thing, but there are a lot of other additional conditions, requirements for these collectives, because the structure of a collective is more complicated than a single organization. So these are questions about what is the structure within the collective? Is it well organized? Is this clear? What does the management or the board? What are the employees? What are the mandates for the employees, and so on? The same as for how are the accounts organized? Are they well organized? There need to be agreements from the collective with the individual participants. In the agricultural collectives, these are the farmers, but in the nature collectives, these are owners of, for example, woodlands or nature areas. And these agreements need to be compliant with the subsidies the province grants to the collective, and it needs to be very clear about all the things the individual participant has to do. And the collective needs to have a certain monitor system about the performance and the compliance of all the individual members. And if individual members do not comply or do not the things which are designated in the agreements, the collective needs to have a system to set penalties for their individual participants, penalties for non-compliance or not meeting the goals. And of course, it's all about money. The money from the provinces go to the collective, but the collective has to divide it and to the individual participants. And about this whole paying systems and security of all the steps in this, there are several rules just in order to organize that it's all well organized. And in the last sense, and point 8, there are also more extended requirements about development of knowledge, mainly ecological knowledge, and whole knowledge infrastructure concerning the board and the management of the collective, as well as the individual participants. So this is a much more complicated system than for individual managers, of course, but it's logical because it's a complicated structure. Yes, the next sheet. I will now tell something about how the process does work in practice. process of certification and auditing. Well, it starts with the site manager. When the site manager asks for a subsidy grant to the provinces for support of his sites, at the same moment he has to apply for a certificate. And applying for the certificate means that he has to draw up a quality manual. The foundation of certification carries out an assessment based on the set of requirements. That means that we have special auditors and assessors who all read these manuals and make a report to the board of the foundation about the question, is it okay or not? When the requirements are not met, we give some opportunity to the site managers to amend and to make improvements and so on, mostly with a time schedule. And when it's all okay and it's improved, then the foundation grants the certificate. And in some cases, it will never come to that point, and then the site manager will get no certificate and cannot get subsidies from the province. After giving a certificate, we have the rule that every 3 years there's an audit. An audit means that 1 or 2 of our auditors visit the site management organization or the site manager, and they ask him to show all the things he does and to prove that he meets all the requirements. When the manager follows all the guidelines he has written down in his own quality manual, it's okay. Then we will continue the certificate for another 3 years or maybe some longer. But in case there are what we call major shortcomings, we cannot continue the certificate, but then mostly we give some recovery period, mostly 6 weeks. But when the major shortcomings are very severe, it takes some more time sometimes. But in all cases, there's opportunity for the site manager to improve, and if he has done that work, we judge whether he can continue the certificate or not. And we also distinguish what we call minor shortcomings, and these are shortcomings that are not very severe but are not completely it's not completely like it should be. So our experts, auditors, they write these minor shortcomings in their report, and when there will be an audit 3 years later, these must be resolved, and if not, then it becomes a major shortcoming. And this is a system which causes some learning effect in the site management organization. Yes, next please. I told you about all the individual managers with small areas, less than 200 hectares. We have now about 900 of them, and we are a small organization and we cannot manage audits every 3 years in this very large group. It wouldn't be effective also because many of them are very small landowners with 5 or 10 hectares only, with a woodland, for example. And so it's in total, all these 900 individual managers have only 4% of the total nature areas in the Netherlands, which is a very small part. So we have developed a support structure or auxiliary structure for this group, and the main role is for a private company called Partner, which is a partner organization of us. And partner offers that he can assist individual managers in drawing up the quality manual. She is using, they're using standards for that. They're asking the individual site managers to send annual reports about what they're doing, and so they can give some recommendations to do things better. Partner organizes information meetings. These are mandatory for the participators every once in 4 years. These are meetings in the field where they see and discuss how you manage certain types of nature. We, as a foundation, only conduct about 40 audits every year, which is about 5% of the total population. And we have agreed with partner that they do like let's say a quick scan audit every 3 years. This is a really quick scan. It's only a telephone call maybe sometimes, but it's meant to improve the quality of their management and the effectiveness of their management during the long time that we do not have an audit in this group. Yes, next please. I told about the foundation for certification. We are established in 2011 by the 12 provinces. We have articles of association and a mandate of provinces. This is all identical for the 12 provinces. And it's important to state that we are independent. We can decide by ourselves whether we will grant a certificate or not, of course, based on the program of requirements. And the system has been growing gradually, not from one moment to the other. It started in 2011, and from 2016, it's mandatory for all site managers and all organizations to have this certificate. We have a website, and you can read more about how we do things there, but it's only in Dutch, I have to say. Yes, next slide, please. The structure, I told we are a very small organization. We have a management board of 3 members. I'm one of them at the moment, and we are trying to expand to 4 members now. There's a small office. There's a director secretary and 2 part-time working people to support her, which is 1.5 full-time equivalent at the moment. And as a board, we have decided to expand this because this is too little. There's too much work for them to do. So I hope this will be 2 or even more in the near future. Then we have the most work as when it's about assessment of documents and audit visits is done by assessors, auditors. We have 9 of them now, and these are all, let's say, senior people, very senior people, experienced in things like quality management. They're all familiar with nature management. In the agricultural part of it, they are familiar with agriculture systems and so on. So these people are the real experts in our organization, and what they do is they do the work, make reports, and give an advice to the board, and the board decides on granting the certificate or not. We are financed by the provinces. We have a ISO certificate, as we are judging about other organizations. So you should have a certificate by yourself. So we have an ISO certificate, and we have an audit every year, and we are very happy with it. We're also working, I think, very cost effective. Our budget is about 700,000 euro, including the expansion of more people working next year. And this is about 0.2% of the total budget for nature management in the Netherlands by the 12 provinces. So that's very little amount, and it's a very cost-effective method, this certification, to improve the quality of the management of these sites. Yes, next sheet, please. This is repetition of the formal duties of our foundation. Next, please. Yes, some things about the results. We have certificates now for these 4 groups. First, the large area managers. These are about 40 certificates, and these are including the State Forestry Service, which is the largest owner of nature land in the Netherlands. I think about 270,000 hectare. The Vereniging Natuurmonumenten, private organization, nature conservation organization, with about 110,000 hectares. 12 provincial nature protection organizations, and about 25 private estates, large private estates. The small area managers are the 900 I mentioned before. We only have, at the moment, 6 nature collectives. One of them is a very large collective. It's the Unie van Bosgroepen, a group of mainly woodland owners with 1,600 participants, mostly very small owners of woodland, and they are working together in these forest groups, forest group cooperation. And the farmers are united in 40 collectives. Yes, next sheet, please. I will say something about our experiences until now. I think when I prepared this presentation, it was I thought about it. We don't have very evidence about it, but I can give many examples for a better environmental management of nature areas. Effectiveness has been growing very much in the 14 years we have now. In all groups, I think there are better management plans, there are better systems for monitoring and evaluation are developed. There's much more knowledge about how to manage good, and a lot of knowledge exchange has been organized. So it's all better, but it would be nice to have independent research about this. Yes. Second point is next week, Christian van Oene will talk about resilience in the management organization by using all type of automatic systems. And I think that the growing of these systems in management organizations and this certification are two sides of the same coin, because we ask nature conservation organizations to be transparent. And to be transparent, they build systems where they collect a lot of data about their fields. And it's better to have these data in a system than only in the heads, in the minds of the rangers. What was the situation before most times? So in my opinion, these are two sides of the same coin. I'm curious whether Christian van Oene next week will agree with this. And I'm very curious to his story next week. Another point is we have, as a board, to balance between given sanctions, be very strict and given sanctions on one hand, or to stimulate and learn and learning by the nature management organization. You can talk about carrot and stick, for example. And of course, we are very strict. We don't accept major shortcomings, but we can stimulate learning by giving opportunity to improve things. Last month, we had an example of a large organization with many shortcomings, major shortcomings. And we have had talks with them from our board, with the director of this organization. And this was a reason for him to reorganize some things in his own organization. And when he was ready, the things were up to date and okay. We continued his certificate, and he thanked us for our input, because without our pressure, he wouldn't have been able to reorganize his organization. So that's a very nice result, I think. For the large group of small managers, there is still room for many improvement, I think. But that will come, I hope. And for the agricultural collectives, it's very important to realize that what we are doing with this certification system is very essential for them to comply with the EU conditions for co-financing from the Common Agricultural Policy second pillar, the Fund for Rural Development. And they got a lot of money from Europe for nature management on their agricultural land, and this is partly made possible by this system. Yes, next sheet is the last sheet, I think. About the prospects, I think we try to improve the system further, for example, for the small managers. And the second thing is we try to expand it to new policies. There are plans made by the national government in the Netherlands, as well as the provincial governments, for the rural areas, dealing with problems of nitrogen pollution, water quality, water pollution, carbon problems, of course. So we expect there will be a lot of new policies with new schemes, and of course, this system of certification can be used in these new policies. That's the same when we're talking about existing systems like the EU eco scheme, which is very complicated. Also, the control is very complicated. So maybe we can help the national government. This is a national government thing with our certification system. And in the last place, we're talking about biodiversity, but maybe we can expand it to other environmental issues, water management, and so on. That's what we are thinking now about the future. And of course, I think, in my opinion, the system we use, of course, it's combined with sanctions in our system, and sanctions and subsidies, but you can use the system as well, just as for measuring and learning how it works with the effectiveness and the quality of site management. The technique is very good for it, I think, but that's for a discussion. This was my last sheet, so I thank you for listening, and maybe there's some time for questions.
Thanks a lot, Tjebbe. That was very interesting, and a very good system indeed to help to improve the effectiveness and the results of management of protected areas, but not only protected areas, also agricultural sites areas, as you have indicated. And indeed, I think it's also a good basis for For instance, the introduction of nature certificates and maybe even also CO2 certificates linked to
Yeah.
management of protected areas. So it really is a very good system to build up, but it also has its impact had already, as you have indicated. There are a few questions in the box. I would like to present to you. This first question, you basically answered that already. But how long does a certificate last?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We now we when we give grant a certificate, there's no dates mentioned in the certificate. It doesn't expire, but we have discussion about this. I think we should go to a system that the certificate expires within, let's say, 4 years, because we now have an audit every 3 years, but this is only recently introduced. And before that, we had different schedules and time schedules for different groups. So now we grow all groups to once in 3 years an audit. I think the time has come that we can say this certificate will last for, let's say, 4 years. So we have opportunity in 3 years to give an audit. And when the audit ends positive, the certificate will be continued for another 4 years.
All right. Yeah, because there's an additional question from Dylan Lloyd, the same one who asked the first question, is have you had to put in place an appeals process for those not gaining certification or those with major issues? And also, in addition to that, do you have examples of certificates that have been revoked?
Yeah. We have, when site managers ask for a certificate, there are always, every year there are some smaller organizations who discover how complicated it is and they withdraw. So I think it's seldom the question that we decide not to give a certificate. It's mostly that the site manager itself withdraws himself. We have had some examples in the last year as well that we have written to an organization with a certificate that things are not okay, and we will withdraw the certificate within within 2 months, or for example, 6 weeks. And what you see then that's a sign for them to come in action and to make improvements, because it's linked to the subsidy of the provinces. So it motivates every site manager to do his best, and so mostly at last they're coming again and meeting the requirements. Yes.
Okay. And another question from Jacob Anderson is, do you have any knowledge whether this kind of certification is existing in any other European country? Or
Yes,
is it typical for the Netherlands?
Yeah, interesting question. No, I don't. And I want to ask the participants if they know something what looks a little like this system. As far as I know, we're the only one, but I'm not sure.
Okay. We don't know it, at least, but maybe there are.
Yeah.
So, and Theo van der Sluis, he asked, does the foundation also have discussions with the authorities and by 12 about funding programs and challenges for landowners?
Discussion about funding.
About funding programs.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes, of course we have discussion because what I told in the last sheet, we are in a phase of orientation on implementing this system in new policies developed by the provinces or by the central government. So that's the discussion at this moment, and we think we have a good system from our foundation. Seen from our viewpoint, it's a good system that can work in a broader sense than we apply now. But it's not yet concluded. Of course, it takes more time for this.
Okay, I have one question myself. So you do the audit is basically a paper audit.
Yes.
And looking at the logbook and so on. How is your monitoring linked to the monitoring of the biodiversity? I mean, there needs to, I would say, a relation between their organizational aspects and what you are monitoring and the impact on the field. How do you realize this coordination or cooperation?
Yes. Yes, that's a good question. Because the field monitoring about actual biodiversity developments and so on is not yet completed, and the program doesn't work is not yet implemented in the total system. So there are still a lot of lack of information about the developments in the field. And ideally, we should have the certification and we should have the monitoring with a lot of data, and then have what I called the discussions between the provinces and the site manager over about how is it going. And I know some examples that this works very good, but there are too many that it needs improvement, still needs improvement. And of course, what we do is we don't visit the fields and we don't make an assessment of the vegetation, of the bird populations and so on. So we essential in this system is we have confidence that when the site owner shows us reports about monitoring and tells us he is doing it, so we believe it, and without evaluating the results, but evaluating the results should be in the debate discussions between the province and the site manager, and this has to be developed. And this is one of the points. We have had an evaluation last year with the provinces together, and this is exactly the point we have pointed at in the direction of the 12 provinces. Let's improve this point because this is the weakest point in the system now.
Okay, clear. Well, it's past 5 o'clock now. We have been having the webinar now for more than an hour. I think it's time to close. Once more, thank you very much, Cheba. It was really interesting. And if people have questions, they can always approach us. Or you have also shown your website. We will put the presentation on our website.
Yeah.
And don't forget to listen to our next webinar next week, Tuesday, again at 4 o'clock, about the use of software in management and how that relates to effectively improve or effective management of sites, protected sites. So once again, thank you all for participating and have a good evening.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye-bye.